Good afternoon, everyone. This is Wim Dijkstra from Saor Alba NL, the YouTube channel for Netherlands for Scottish Independence. I want to apologize if the wind going through the sound is bothering everybody. It's the first time I'm doing this outside, and it's kind of windy here in the Netherlands, so I apologize for that. We're joined today by my good friend Gregg Brain. How you doing, mate?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
No, definitely, mate. Definitely. Good to see you again. We really haven't talked that much lately, huh?
I understand
well.
I understand you'll be over this side of the channel in a few weeks' time, man. It'd be good to see you.
Definitely. Going to be over from the 4th of October till the 16th. So I'm going to go to the Edinburgh event and to conference, SFP conference as well. So and everything in between. So, Greg, for people that don't know you, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Father and husband to an Aussie family who moved to Scotland in 2011 on the promise of a visa pathway that would be available to us. And by the time we got to 2016, the Westminster government had removed the visa pathway. I mean, that they canned it, I don't have a problem with, but that they'd done it retroactively to people who'd already moved over here and committed was the issue. So there was a bit of a battle with Westminster during the middle of the Brexit referendum campaign to get them to honour the promise that they'd made to us.
Yeah. I mean, you've had to reapply again for the can't think of the word.
The work visa.
Yeah, the visas. There you go.
Yeah.
You have to, and you're now on a 4-year one, right?
That's correct. Yeah, in 2016, due to administrative rules, we could only apply for a 1-year visa at that point, despite the fact that it didn't cost a lot less than the 4-year one. And then in 2017, we spent another £10,000 or £15,000 to apply for a 4-year extension to that, which, after some lies from the Home Office, was to before we got that sorted out. So that's sorted out till 2021 at this point, and then at that point we will have to do something else along those lines.
Yeah. Well, independence has to be achieved, because I think once independence has been achieved, you shouldn't have any problem. I think it's just the Westminster Home Office.
Obviously, that's our preferred option if we're dealing with the Scottish Department of Foreign Affairs making a citizenship application.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well. You being from Australia, me being from the Netherlands, basically both for Scottish independence. How important do you think the international support for Scottish independence is?
I think that Scottish independence won't happen without international support. If you look historically to countries that have had independence referenda and have voted for independence, not all of them have actually become independent countries. You can look to Taiwan, to the Kurds, who voted over 90%. I think it was something like 95 or 98% in favour of independence.
High up there,
But without international recognition, they are still a people divided, with the borders of 3 different nations dividing them up. Scotland will need to have that international recognition of its moves towards independence. They want to have the Saltire flying to the UN. We will need the UN to recognise us. And so movements like yours, Netherlands for Scottish Independence, Germans for Scottish Independence, with Callum supporting them there, they are vital, and probably more vital than a lot of Scots know, to get this over the line.
No, exactly. And the thing is, I've got asked a lot of times, why do you care so much about Scotland and its independence? And well, it's sometimes it's a little bit hard to explain in the sense of why, but on the other hand, Scotland, especially in Europe, they're the only country, I think, that are ruled from afar.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much unique. Yeah, we're pretty much unique that we're ruled from another country, and that the 4 major parties in our in our own parliament are funded by and controlled by the parliament of another nation. That's
Yeah.
probably unique worldwide, but certainly unique in Europe.
Sorry about the wink. Something in my eye.
Oh, you're fine, man.
Got so emotional. Oh well. Now, with in my opinion, it's just a matter of time that Scottish independence will happen, and not just. I've said this in an interview with Gregg Brain as well. Like in fighting for Scottish independence, you're also fighting for Welsh and Northern Irish independence, but also for English independence. Basically, you know, everything that comes out of Westminster is toxic to everybody in the UK, I think.
Well, I think that we talk about English votes for English laws. I think that's a failing of the recognition of the devolution that's occurred, partial devolution that's occurred
Yes.
in Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. English votes for English laws happen simply because the English people do not have their own devolved parliament.
Yeah.
If they had their own devolved parliament, then there would be no need for that. We could, if the UK were to move to a federal model, and we would still advocate for Scottish independence in that situation. But if the UK were to move to a federal model, and there would be Westminster in charge of foreign affairs, foreign trade, defence, say, and the local parliaments for the four countries, everything else, English votes for English laws is not necessary. You have an English parliament. I strongly suspect, though, that if you gave the English people devolved parliament on the same sort of deal that Scotland's been given, they would reject it as being not nearly good enough for all.
Exactly. Exactly. And but now you think now a lot of people saying online that Boris becoming PM might actually tilt the polls over to the, well, even more so over to the yes side, because basically what the choice is: do you want Scottish independence, or do you want independence, or do you want Boris?
I think
And
so. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for Scotland in one respect. I mean, obviously, anything that moves Scotland towards independence has to be viewed as being an advantage for Scottish independence.
yeah,
That said, people criticise the SNP for trying to save the rest of the UK from Brexit. I don't. I think that an independent Scotland is going to need wealthy neighbours so they can afford to buy our stuff.
yeah,
A rump of the UK that imposes economic sanctions on itself, which is what Brexit is, doesn't fulfil that criteria, and Scotland will be better off with a wealthy England to its south.
definitely.
And so if Boris Johnson's promotion, and we've just seen overnight that he's lost a by-election in Wales, that even with the DUP support, which is going to cost him billions more, I suspect, even with that DUP support, he has a working majority of one. If just one Europhile Tory MP defects to the Lib Dems,
To the Brexit party, even.
or the Brexit, well, there may be defections to the Brexit party. That I don't think that changes the calculus for Brexit. It might change the calculus for confidence in his government. I actually think we might see the insanity of a hardline Brexiteer Labour MP or three voting for the Tories in a motion of no confidence just to see Brexit done, which would be an indication of just how insane Westminster politics has become. But that's a realistic possibility. You could see hardline Brexiteers from the Labour benches supporting the Tory government to prop them up on a motion of no confidence. That said, I still believe that there will be an election before the end of the year. There will be a four-way split in Westminster between the Brexit Party, the Tories, Labour, and Lib Dems making big gains south of the Tweed, simply because of their no Brexit stance. I don't know how that would play out. We could end up seeing a Brexit Party government propped up by a coalition with the Tories as a junior party. And while on one level that would be as funny as hell to watch, that would be a horror show for the future of England particularly. It won't help Scotland, although I do believe Scotland would become independent. But as I said, Scotland needs wealthy neighbours to trade with. Now, a wealthy Netherlands is good, but a wealthy neighbour immediately to our south would be better.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, and I think no person ever said they couldn't be good neighbors with, like for instance, England. I mean, even within if the UK falls apart, and basically I think Boris will be the last prime minister of the UK. I'm almost sure
I
of
wouldn't
that.
argue.
What's that?
I wouldn't argue with that.
No, and but there's no reason for any of the four countries in the UK to have good cooperation. Well, you know, it shouldn't be as the union is now, but more like a cooperation between four neighboring countries to like financially or even military, maybe even. I don't know, but I mean,
Well, with independence, Scotland, with full independence of the four major components of the UK: Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland. If all four were to become independent in their own fashion, Wales and Scotland becoming independent countries, the six counties of Northern Ireland reunifying with the rest of Ireland,
yeah,
those four countries then, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England, could well become the partnership of equals that we were
yeah,
in fact promised by vote 2014.
yeah,
We
exactly,
would actually achieve what hasn't been delivered since that vote.
exactly. I mean, the Act of Union. In the Act of Union, it says it's an equal partnership. It has never been an equal partnership, but there's no reason for it not to be able to work if you know if that was set up, but not as a union like it is now.
Yeah. Well, there is a copy of the Scotland Act, the original one signed by Tony Blair and Donald Dewar in 1998, I think, where Tony Blair said that, and I can't remember the exact words, something like it may continue to be hard, but it will always have been worth it forward together as a partnership of equals.
Yeah.
And if that had occurred in fact as well as in rhetoric, then we probably wouldn't have seen an independence referendum in 2014.
No. No. Oh well. We'll see what happens. I think it's inevitable now. I mean, I'm not just saying that for somebody that fights for Scottish independence, but I truly feel like with everything, everybody's just fed up with the whole Brexit thing, and and even people outside of Scotland are fed up with it. Europe is fed up with it, so I don't know how Boris is thinking on renegotiating or anything.
Well,
I think it's the beginning
negotiation.
of the end. That the Tories have been digging their own political graves, I think.
Yeah, well, EU, I think there will be no new deal from the EU. The EU has Portugal, Italy, Greece desperately wanting special deals. This requirement from the UK that if this belief that some seem to have that if they just give them an English steely gaze and speak slowly and loudly until those continentals understand,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're comprehending that renegotiation for the EU is an existential threat. If they
Yeah.
renegotiate with the UK, then Italy, Greece, Portugal, and a couple of others, I'm sure, will all want their own bespoke deals. And the EU only works with these transparent and permeable borders because everybody is on a regulatory basis is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Start renegotiating, the EU falls apart. What Boris Johnson and the hardline Brexiteers and the Tory party are asking for existence. They don't seem to realise that, and that's why the EU cannot renegotiate. They keep saying we will not, we will not. It's not a negotiating tactic. It's a response to an existential threat. And as for Scottish independence, you were saying how you believe it's an inevitability. I believe it's an inevitability for demographic reasons. As an Australian who came over here who hadn't been brainwashed by decades of unionist media, who came from a country where independence is just the normal state of affairs. If you're offered the chance to pull on some adult trousers on the world stage and take your own part as a responsible independent country, you just do it. Australia did it with a vote in 1900. Scotland is slowly getting to that point because they are raising a generation of people who haven't been influenced by mainstream media, who haven't been influenced by unionist media. People who have are slowly dying out. Demographically independent, whether it's a good idea or not, obviously I believe it's an excellent idea, but whether you believe it's a good idea or not, demographically independence.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I just want to thank you for the interview. I have to go
Anytime.
back to my work. So, um, if there's any for the people that are going to be watching, that if there's somebody that you would like to have interviewed, please let us know. If yes, anything that you want discussed, please let us know. And I want to
Hit that
thank Greg.
subscribe button.
What's that?
Hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, exactly. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. And indeed, yeah. Yeah, I want to thank Greg for the interview, and we'll talk soon again, mate.
No problem at all, man.
All
Anytime.
right. All right. Bye bye.